Thank you for sticking it out to the fourth and final part of our Getting the Most from Your Lectures screencast. Your work doesn't end when the lecture does. There are lots of strategies you can use to continue learning and to remember what you've learned after class. It's very important to review your materials soon after class. You'll see why a few slides later. Right after class, you can start this process by filling in any gaps in your notes while you still might remember those points. Try reviewing the notes with a classmate so that you can each help fill in things that the other one missed. You can also check textbooks for information or visit the professor or TA during office hours. If you didn't do the readings before class, read the lecture notes along with your readings and use your lecture notes to help you understand the readings. Fill in additional details from the readings right into the lecture notes. If you used Cornell notes, which are discussed in Part 3, this is a good time to fill in keywords, questions, and summaries in the extra boxes. Since SFU moved to remote learning in 2020, it is common for audio and video recordings of lectures to be made available. Either the recording of a live lecture or a pre-recorded lecture that students watch on their own. A recording of a live lecture can be great for filling in gaps in your notes or helping you to understand material that you didn't get during lecture. You can ask the professor permission to make a recording if they don't record their lectures and you think that reviewing a recording would help you learn. If your professor records the lectures or gives you permission to record the lectures, keep an eye on the time during class. If there's something you want to go back to, you can write down the time so that you can refer to a specific minute or two of the lecture recording. No need to listen to the entire thing. Another use of lecture recordings is to fill in extra review of your courses while you were doing activities such as driving, going for a run, or standing on a crowded bus where it would be impractical to read or write. Particularly if you tend to learn well through listening, you could benefit from listening to the lecture more than once. However, the benefit of re-listening to lectures is likely to be less than when you have a chance to review using more active methods, such as quizzing yourself from Cornell notes or practice questions. Some students use the fact that there are lecture recordings and notes are posted as an excuse to not go to class. That's a really poor decision. Very few of these students reliably listen to all of the lecture recordings later in the term. And even if they do, they still miss information that is written on the board, don't see the instructor's body language, and won't have an opportunity to ask questions. Make sure to use lecture recordings as a way to review or fill in missing points, rather than to avoid attending class. Remember the strong relationship between class attendance and grades shown on this graph and discussed in Part 1 of this screencast. Reviewing periodically is essential for good learning. This is because of something called the curve of forgetting. Look at the solid black line on this graph. You'll see that when you arrive at your lecture, you don't know the material, but when you leave the class, you would in theory know it all. Then see what happens by day 2. Most students forget roughly 2/3 of what they learned. A week later, you can expect to forget 90% of it. Then a month after learning new material, it's common to forget almost all of it. Not an ideal situation, given that this is when midterms often take place. Forgetting like this is a totally natural thing. It's an inconvenient way that the human memory works. Fortunately, there are ways to avoid it. Look at the dotted line on the graph, which shows the impact of regular review. If you review for 10 minutes the day you learn the material, you can bring your memory back to 100%, slowing down the process of forgetting. A further 5 minutes each week or so can bring your memory back up again. As time goes on, you'll need less and less time and effort to recall the information you've learned. Think about a skill that you learned as a young child, tying your shoes or writing your name, for example. You probably practiced it regularly for a while and sometimes forgot how to do it, but over time it became something that you don't even need to think about. Getting information in your long-term memory like this is the benefit of regular review. Then when exams come around, you won't need to cram or relearn material. Instead, you'll be able to focus your effort on doing practice questions and on thinking about the connections between material that you learned in different weeks of the course. Review is most effective when it involves trying to recall information. For example, from looking at a question or a keyword in Cornell notes, or a heading, rather than just scanning over your notes. If you are always just scanning over your notes, recopying them, or listening to lecture recordings, you will feel that you are fluent with the information, but you may discover at the exam that you are unable to reproduce it from memory. This is a phenomenon called the fluency illusion. So it is very important to practice recalling information on a regular basis and to apply that information. For university courses, not only is it important to reconstruct information from memory, but it's also beneficial to think about relationships between material in different parts of the course, as well as how you might be tested on the material. The SLC has made a worksheet to help students structure their review. It asks you to recall the key information from class, summarize it in your own words to assess your understanding, build connections with the material, and write practice questions that you could later use to study for an exam. Doing this after each class, reading, or unit of the course will help you to systematically review material while also building a useful tool for you to study from. It also helps you to figure out where the gaps are in your knowledge so that you can seek help more effectively. You can download this tool from the link on the slide or pick up a paper copy at any Student Learning Commons location. You can practice using this worksheet today for a lecture that you've recently attended. If you're not currently enrolled in classes, try completing the worksheet to review what you've learned in this screencast. Another strategy to review is to reorganize your notes into comparison charts, flowcharts, or concept maps. This could be particularly useful for consolidating information from a number of lectures and noting relationships, connections, similarities, and differences between the different information. Comparison charts can help you to see the differences and similarities between theories you learn about in psychology or novels you learn about in English, for example. Sometimes professors ask you to take a moment at the end of class to turn to a classmate and share something that you've learned, or to write down some of your thoughts. They're not doing this to stall for time or get between you and your lunch. They're helping you to start the process of review. So I'd like to encourage you to take a moment to review what you've learned today and think about a couple of strategies that you would like to try this semester. Well, that's it for now. I just wanted to let you know that the Student Learning Commons offers more resources and services to help with learning from lectures and related study strategies. To find this screencast, you likely know about the live and recorded workshops that are listed under the pink Find a Workshop tile on the left of our homepage. There are numerous recordings posted where you found this one. And if you want to learn more about taking notes, I suggest the workshop Note-Taking from Reading and Lectures in particular. The orange tile at the top of the homepage links to numerous resources on lectures and many other topics. Some of the topics are ones you would likely expect, such as exam preparation, reading, and time management. It may surprise you that we have information about other topics such as sleep, perfectionism, and stress management. Finally, if you go back to the pink tiles on the left, the other one says book a consultation. As an SFU student, that's where you would book a free appointment for personal guidance around getting the most from your lectures or other academic strategies. Or you could book an appointment for support with any aspect of your academic writing. Are you an SFU student who has watched all 4 parts of this screencast? If so, why not take the opportunity to fill out a quick survey about what you have learned? It will earn you an annotation on your co-curricular record, which is like an official transcript that lists what you have experienced at SFU outside of class. I hope this screencast has helped and that you will get the most out of your next lecture.